Welcome to Startups Simplified, Gavin.
Thanks for inviting me, Deepak.
Pleasure to you. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Like, enjoying living in Indonesia for the last 2 years. Spent the
Lovely
last
place.
5 years here. Yeah.
So how often were you visiting Indonesia, and where you originally from?
I'm originally from Singapore.
Okay.
I'm Singaporean. I first came to Indonesia for Aspire when we were setting up our Indonesia operations here.
When would that be?
That was early 2019, so 5 years ago.
Okay.
And for Aspire, I was coming here every month, sometimes up to 4 times a month. That was how business travel happened then.
Sure.
Right? That's how people were doing it.
Yeah.
So that was when I got familiar with Indonesia. And when I started Brick in 2020, sometime in 2020, I started coming here, but the lockdowns happened.
Sure.
So then I was stuck in Singapore. But once the lockdown started easing up, late 2021, I moved here permanently.
Oh,
Right.
nice.
And I've been
So
spending-
now you live in Jakarta.
now I live in Jakarta. Yeah, that's right.
Nice, perfect. So, very curious. I mean, we'll get into what Brick does and the whole fintech ecosystem and more. But I'm very curious on how did you transition from being a lawyer that to criminal lawyer? If I'm not-
I did a fair bit of criminal work, public interest, litigation work.
So how did this transition happen from being a criminal lawyer to getting into Aspire, for that matter, and now
Yes.
co-founding Brick?
Yeah. So perhaps I'll start with my teen years, right? They're my formative years.
Sure.
So I always had a huge interest in numbers. I was always good with numbers. Always had a huge interest in financial markets, financial services. As a young boy, was enamored by the stories of George Soros.
Okay. How
taking down the
old were
Bank
you
of
at this time?
Thailand.
How old were you?
I was, I think 13, 14 at that time.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm not sure how I came across the Asian financial crisis and George Soros, because I would have been 7 at that time.
Yeah.
Somebody told me about it.
Sure.
Yeah.
And you were intrigued by that.
Intrigued by that. Yeah, intrigued by the concept of short selling. How can you sell something that you don't have? How currencies of a country or multiple countries can be taken down overnight. So yeah, I really dove into that and read everything I could.
I really don't want to embarrass myself by sharing what I was doing when I was 7 or 13. But this is really interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So I was always good with numbers, good with mathematics and the sciences. But around 18, when I had to make a decision on which degree I would pursue and which career path I would go towards, I got some advice that I should look for a career path that is meaningful and not just where you're earning tons of money.
Okay.
Right? So because of that, I started looking at other career options. I stumbled into my school then, my college then, junior college then, organized a career day. And I stumbled into the law career talk.
Okay.
Yeah, the law career talk. And
And this is all happening in Singapore.
all happening in Singapore. Yeah.
Okay.
So I thought what the lawyers did was really meaningful. And then it was then I decided that perhaps this is a career option that I would like to pursue.
Okay.
So I started studying really hard in the final year of my junior college before university. And yeah, somehow I made it to law school. Right?
Okay.
But law school was always very difficult for me.
Why? Why would you say so?
Because something I learned is the skills required for humanities studies, for something like law, geography, is very different from the skills required in a mathematics field or science field.
Correct.
So like in mathematics science field, it's very logical, step by step, heavy on the numbers. And in a humanities field, you need to be able to process a lot of information very quickly.
Correct.
And be able to absorb that.
Correct.
That was something I found I was very behind on versus my peers.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure.
So definitely struggled through that, but always, and there are two major types of lawyers. If I break it down,
Please, please.
yeah. So there are disputes lawyers. Those are lawyers that go to court and fight your case on behalf of
Sure.
with the opposing side. And then there are transactional lawyers. So these are lawyers that do the big M&A deals,
Yeah.
IPOs, etc. They
Sure.
do a lot of paperwork. They rarely or never go to court. Right? So I was a disputes lawyer.
Okay.
I did my
So you were out there in the courtroom.
yes,
Okay.
almost every day, definitely every week.
Okay.
Right? And I like you mentioned earlier, I did my fair share of criminal work, public interest work. In fact, many times I went head up against the Singapore government on behalf of my clients. Right? But we also did a good amount of corporate and commercial disputes because that's what pays the bills.
Sure. Sure. How long did you practice law?
I practiced for about 2 years, and then that was when I spoke to myself and I had to make a decision. Right? If I continued in the law, then it's very easy to be stuck in that career path, and you get your mortgage, your car loan, and
It's a vicious cycle.
yeah, and your salary goes up to a certain amount. It makes it super difficult for you to leave that career path.
Sure.
But
So was it high paying? Was it a high paying job?
it's it's a high paying job. Yeah, relatively. At that time, computer science was still it was already high demand, but not as high demand as it was right now, as it is right now.
Sure.
So at that time, lawyers out of university was still the highest paying degree. Right. So yeah, fairly high paying. But my first love was still financial services,
Sure.
financial markets. So I sat down, thought to myself, what can I do to marry my interest in financial services, financial markets, and my skills in the law? Right? So then I looked at the banks. It would be super hard for me to join a bank.
Yeah, given the background, yeah.
And Fintech was just coming up then. It wasn't even really a word. Right?
I mean, these are the jargons we create, so it's okay.
Yeah. So I was speaking with a couple of fintechs. Some of the wealth tech startups were just coming up then, like Stashaway, and their competitors, which have since closed shop.
Correct.
And I eventually got an opportunity to join a mobile money, e-money company headquartered in Kuala Lumpur, but operational in Myanmar.
Operational in Myanmar.
Myanmar. That's called Ujibo. So Myanmar was it opened up for a good number of years, about 4 or 5 years before
before the unrest. Yeah.
Before the unrest happened again.
Correct. Okay. So you were based in Kuala Lumpur at that time.
Yes. Yeah. I lived in Kuala Lumpur for a year. Right. So far I've been in 3 fintech startups. Now let me take you through that's a high level my fintech career. Right. So I've spent the last 8 years or so helping scale high growth fintechs across the Southeast Asian region. Kuala Lumpur first, and then Singapore, Indonesia, Thailand, Vietnam, or Myanmar a little bit.
This was with Aspire.
Yes, that was with Aspire. Yeah. And so first with that e-money, mobile money platform in Myanmar, then with Aspire in Singapore first, and then we quickly expanded to Indonesia, Thailand, and Vietnam. I would say under 6 months. And because of the challenges we faced at Aspire, and the challenges I saw firsthand with infrastructure in emerging markets, that was what also inspired me to start Brick. Right, so this is my fintech career so far. Yeah.
Okay, I'll hold you on your Aspire journey, because I believe that's a good beginning point for us to gradually come to Brick and what you're doing over here, right? So you were very early in the Aspire journey, right? I mean, Aspire was just getting started at that point.
Yeah, I was the first 20 employees.
First 20. Oh, perfect. So you have the first-hand experience of really scaling Aspire grounds up.
Yeah.
Right. So one is why Aspire for you, right? Why Aspire? And second, what would be a few important learnings which you got from getting a fintech grounds up and running?
Yeah, I think a couple of learnings. So why Aspire first? Aspire was still really small then, right?
Yeah.
When I spoke with them, they probably were about 15 full-time employees.
Nice.
And primarily, I was speaking with the founders. So it was really because I found the founders super smart, high energy. I liked what they were working on, right? Reinventing SMB banking for SMBs in Southeast Asia.
True.
So primarily, I thought it was a great learning opportunity.
Sure.
And that's why I joined them. And that's always pretty much the main reason why I make different career decisions, right? Good learning opportunity, good boss or mentor, let's go.
Sure. Okay. I mean, Aspire has been a godsend for small businesses, to be honest. I mean, we are a Singapore headquartered company, and opening up a bank account in Singapore is tedious.
Yeah.
It is absolutely tedious.
Yeah.
So great work at Aspire for sure. What would be the few learnings, right? Core learnings, not only from a product standpoint, but purely from growing the business 100x.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, that's been their journey.
Yeah.
What would be some core learnings which you would want to share?
The biggest learning by far that I had at Aspire was it can be encapsulated in this phrase, where momentum is the lifeblood of startups. So speed, momentum, that's the most important thing, right? Even ideally, you should have a strategy in mind, meaning you know where to go and you move fast towards that direction. But even if you did not know where to go, you need to just move in startups, right? Because if you're not moving, then you're decaying and dying. Right? That's the biggest lesson I learned from the founders in Aspire, right? And Aspire, as a startup, was a very different animal from the first startup I was operating at. That was, the founders were more coming from a corporate background, and the culture was more corporate.
Sure.
Whereas the founders in Aspire, they were always in startups, right? Since the
process hustle.
Yes, I guess. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Interesting. So you're doing great at Aspire, I believe, during that time.
Yeah.
So how does this happen? I mean, I'm very curious always that someone's doing great in their career, and then at one moment they're like, okay, I've got this idea. I'm going to leave this whole cushion and I'm going to get onto this tedious task of building a startup. Right? I mean, the motivation has to be so high to be able to do this. Right? What was that for you? I mean, what was that motivation which pushed you to that extent that, okay, let me just say goodbye to this really good job which I have, where I'm growing, and get started on this journey.
So I was really happy at Aspire. I had a great job, great boss, learning a lot from him. The company was doing well at that time. And for me, I think it was really the fear of missing out on the opportunity, right? And let me backtrack from that a little bit.
Sure.
So I don't consider myself a entrepreneur by nature, right? I'm not an entrepreneur by nature. And
who's entrepreneur by nature? I mean, just define that. I mean, whom would you think, like anyone who has certain attributes is an entrepreneur, if you could just define for us?
Yeah, so I would describe someone who's an entrepreneur by nature as someone that's perhaps always have ideas, always selling that idea, you know, that visionary entrepreneur, visionary founder that we are used to associating with founders.
Sure.
So I'm sure we've all got friends from a young age where they're selling collectibles, erasers, cards at school, coming up with business ideas. I was never that guy.
Sure.
Right. In fact, I never thought about starting a business.
Sure.
Until perhaps when I was in Aspire. Right.
Okay.
And I think it was really being in the startup space, interacting with other operators, other entrepreneurs that opened my mind to this possibility. Right, some of their entrepreneur bug rubbed off on me. Right, so that's the starting bit.
Okay.
Right, and then I started looking out for opportunities. But for anyone to start a business, many things have to come together. Right, it's a great idea. Let's go. Right, you have to get the right idea. The idea has to interest you. It has to be you can grow into a profitable business, etc. Timing is also very important for an idea, right? If there are already many big competitors in that idea that you want to execute on, then it's super tough to start.
Correct.
Right? Team is another important factor. So I think these would be the three major factors for me. And these things came together for Brick. And that's why I started. I thought, hey, it's not easy for all these factors to come together at the same time.
Sure.
Right. But the trend of open banking, more digitalized banking globally, some interested team members, and right idea that I'm interested in. So I better make the leap. Right. If I wait another 6 months or 12 months, I might miss the boat.
Sure. So how did you end up meeting your co-founder?
So I met Deepak through the startup ecosystem. Also, Deepak is my co-founder.
Sure.
Just for context. And I met him through the startup ecosystem in Singapore. Right, Singapore is a very vibrant startup ecosystem.
Correct.
Entrepreneurs from all over the world, across Southeast Asia, often go to Singapore to try and start a business. And many of the top accelerators for the region are also situated there or started there.
Correct.
Right. So I met him through one of these startup communities. Eventually, we both applied to Antler separately.
Okay.
We officially teamed up in Antler.
Nice. Okay. So I mean, I know Deepak. I mean, I've met him quite a few times. In fact, he's also one of our angel investors at KeTitik. And you both are very different personalities. I mean, that's at least my observation.
Okay.
I don't know if you agree or not, but at least from an outsider's perspective, both are very different personalities. So how does one decide? And you're the first time entrepreneur, right? How does one decide that, okay, I've found my co-founder?
Yeah.
What is that process like?
Yeah. So again, it was a bit of a journey. Like I definitely interacted with Deepak on a social level before we decided to start working together.
Sure.
Right. And the accelerator also helped us with that process. They gave us a framework where you looked at each other's skills fit, personality fit, cultural fit. I cannot remember everything.
Sure.
Right. So we looked at a bit of that. And more than that checklist, right? We just were able to interact with each other socially. You have to be able, your co-founder cannot be unbearable.
Yeah, I mean,
you'll spend more time with your co-founder.
I mean, look, I mean, at least what I feel that in the ideal scenario, you should like your co-founder as a person. In the ideal scenario.
Yeah.
In a decent scenario, you should be able to live with him.
Yeah. Yes.
But as soon as it's like unbearable or disrespectful or whatever, it goes in that direction, I think it just doesn't work.
Yeah. So we definitely enjoyed speaking with each other. We had this very common, strong interest in financial technology, right? And socially, like everything was going good. And then Deepak himself, I had already started working on Brick a little bit there.
Okay.
Deepak himself was exploring a couple of Fintech ideas in Singapore. He independently came to the realization that the right infrastructure wasn't there in Southeast Asia for him to execute on those ideas.
Okay.
So eventually he knew what I was doing. He approached me. Eventually we decided to try working out, try working together. So it wasn't a decision where, hey, I like you. You're smart. Let's team up.
Do something together. Yeah.
So it was like, let's try out.
Sure.
So it was 1 week of working together in the office in person. Or it was actually Deepak's home. to begin with.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it was me going to his home. He had a small table. We were working there.
Okay.
Week 1 went fine. We started working week 2 together. I think somewhere in week 4 or 5, perhaps we moved to an office, co-working space.
Sounds like a dating journey, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like you go on a first date, second date. But I believe, and it's a fair analogy as well, right? I mean, you get to know your co-founder better, and then things start falling into place.
Yeah.
So, what was the very first idea of Brick? What did you decide to build at Brick? What was the first iteration all about?
Yeah, so most people, even today, would know Brick as a open finance, open data platform.
Correct.
We have since evolved a little bit, right? And today, Brick is, I would call it a treasury tool for SMBs.
Okay.
And this treasury tool helps business owners and finance teams level up with smarter payments, automated workflows, and real-time financial data. Right? So we have rolled up whatever we built in that open data platform in this new Brick treasury tool.
Okay. You might have to simplify this.
Yeah.
Let's take an assumption that I am a small business owner. Okay.
Yeah.
And you are a salesperson at Brick. Okay.
Yes.
Talk to me. Why should I collaborate with Brick? How will it benefit me?
Yeah. So to put it very simply, Brick is a dashboard for you to manage all types of money movement in your business.
Okay.
Right. Typically, we deal with larger SMBs and bigger businesses where they would see the benefits of automation, of workflows, etc. We today serve some of the largest conglomerates in Indonesia, like Sinarmas Group, and a lot of brick and mortar SMBs as well, the smaller SMBs. And we serve use cases like automating their payroll calculations, automating invoice management, automating bulk withdrawals, bulk payouts, or say creator platforms, or all different types of platforms. Yeah.
Sure.
So these are some of the different.
But this is not something which you started off with, right?
Yes, yeah. When Brick started, when Brick was born, we did not touch money movement at all.
Okay.
We were purely about data.
Okay.
Right, and then our top customers would be personal finance management apps, lending apps, bookkeeping apps, and we help them consume or aggregate data from the thousands of different data points in Indonesia, and help them make sense of that data.
Basically create APIs for them to consume this data and make sense of it.
Yes, yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so when did this sort of pivot happen? If I may use the word pivot.
Yeah.
When did this happen?
This happened. So this happened purely out of our clients' demands, really, right? We knew we would move into money movement eventually. We did not know when, but our customers who were loving our data and verifications product then came to us and asked if, hey, do you also manage money movement? We would love to have you manage money movement in the APIs and dashboards that you provide to us as well.
That's the best pivot, right? When customers demand for a feature and you're like, okay, we'll build it and it just works well.
Yeah.
It's the best pivot. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we built that product for a pretty large conglomerate in Indonesia. They were happy using it for, I think, about 9 months or so. We were not focused on that product. And the startup winter came. Right?
Sure.
And a lot of startups reduced their spending.
Correct.
Right? Not directly to us, but because they had less new users, that means less usage via Brick and lesser revenue for Brick as a business.
Yeah.
Right? Then we had to sit down seriously and think about what should we focus on in this new economic climate that would be worth the return on investment, right? That we are making in the team, you know, in all those product hours, all those marketing dollars that we are spending.
Correct.
Right? And we realized that this payments or money movement tool that we built was outperforming all our other products, despite the underinvestment in it.
Nice.
So we thought, hey, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Let's double down on
Correct.
This tool.
Correct.
Yeah. So that's how it happened. Yeah.
Interesting. I mean, you're not a very old company. I mean, you're 3 years old now.
Yeah, we're slightly over 2 years old now.
Slightly over
years,
2.
yeah.
Okay, perfect. I mean, it's a very young company, but it intersects two different times of startup funding eras, right? So I mean, everyone is like now pre-21 and post-21, 2021.
Yeah.
Right. Let's talk about your fundraising experience. And this is especially important because you're also first time entrepreneur, right? So let's talk about that. I mean, you can start off probably from Antler, which was your first accelerator, and journey forward, especially from with fundraising perspective.
Yeah. So we've raised about 2 rounds of funding so far, a pre-seed round and a seed round. The pre-seed round was raised in early 2021. That's when we announced it. And the seed round was raised, we announced it in early 2022.
Okay.
Right. So
still the good days.
Yeah, still the good days. Yeah.
How much was your seed?
In total, we raised about $8+ million US.
Okay.
Right, so a good amount for a seed round.
Yes.
Antler was the very first check. And very quickly, we also raised an angel round, bringing in some of the best fintech operators globally and also in the region. And also other unicorn founders who would be very helpful for the business in going forward. So then we had the COO of TrueLayer, the largest open banking platform in Europe, as an angel investor. We also had, I believe, the head of business development and the top executive after the founders in Plaid invest in us.
Wow.
Yeah, and a lot of the founders that you would recognize locally as well. Carousel founders, Buku Warung, Aspire, Fast, etc.
Nice.
Right. And so we had a good amount of funding. We executed, and the seed round later on was then led by Flourish Ventures and Antler Global, the Antler US fund.
Sure.
Right.
Okay. So what leads me to the next question is purely what I hear from different founders whom I meet, right? Is that the money which was given out in the 2021 to early 2022 was given with the push that, hey, listen, go out there, build, spend, acquire users. Don't worry about anything else, right? We are here to back you, and we'll wire the check again if needed, right? Just grow at any cost.
Yeah.
And suddenly within couple of quarters, it changes.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Now, I'm very surprised with the way, if it was me, how would I handle it internally with my employees? Because it's a cultural thing, right? I mean, growth at any cost is also a culture.
Yeah.
You got to imbibe that into your employees.
Yeah.
And then asking them to switch it back to being more reasonable, more revenue and profit oriented is a 180-degree switch. Right?
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on that? I know that it was very early in your journey because you just gotten your seed in 2022.
Yeah.
But I still believe that there would have been some bit of this expectation mismatch initially.
Yes, there was. And a couple of investors would have pushed us at times in the good days So like grow, higher.
Yeah.
I think one thing perhaps we did well is always to do good financial management. So we always maintain a very healthy runway.
Sure.
That allowed us to make any business changes or changes in direction easily without panic, right? And so a few things. One is good financial management. I think the second thing is, as a company, even in those crazy days, we had a board since our pre-seed round. So there was always good
governance out there.
governance, financial management,
Sure,
right?
sure.
It wasn't just the founders doing cowboy stuff.
Yeah.
And, the third thing I would say is the type of people that we have brought into Brick, right? Or Bricksters, as we call it. And I would say one thing that we test for in our recruitment process is how agile is this person, how well are they with change. That in fact is one interview question that we have.
Sure.
Right? How are you with change? Give me an example where you had to manage change. Right? So I think it's these three things which help us navigate this sudden change in the startup narrative climate in just 1 or 2 quarters.
True. No, that sounds fair. Before we move on to the next chapter in our discussion, I want to understand your final thoughts on this whole macroeconomics and this funding winter of sorts. What do you think? When is this going to end? Or is it ending anytime soon?
I try not to think about that question too much because that's really a fortune teller's question, right?
Sure.
I do what I do as a founder is to manage our expenses, our burn, and our runway, and ensure that we have enough time to do experiments, make mistakes, and find the big thing that works, right?
Sure.
Having said that, I do see some recovery in terms of investment activity, some rebound, especially in Europe and the US for early stage rounds.
Nice.
So hopefully that translates to Southeast Asia in the coming 6 to 12 months. Yeah.
True. I mean, even from what I understand, that for strong product-based early stage startups, the funding is still available. It's just that those crazy valuations have disappeared.
Yeah.
And it doesn't, I mean, it's not the story anymore that, hey, listen, I'll wire you the money.
Yeah.
There's a lot more due diligence around it.
Yeah.
Why Indonesia?
The direct answer is because I was most familiar with Indonesia as a market at that time when I was starting Brick.
Okay.
So the story is I actually tried to do a pilot in Singapore first. Right?
Okay.
Me and Deepak were also attending the Antler accelerator in Singapore. They did not have an Indonesia program then. Right? But what we quickly realized was the financial services market in Singapore is dominated primarily by the top 3 banks, DBS, OCBC, UOB. Right? And if these banks did not have willingness or are not intending to work with other technologies and other tech companies in a big way, then an API infrastructure layer like us doesn't make sense as a business.
Correct.
Right? So then I started looking at other markets. I had already been spending about 2 years in Indonesia then, or perhaps even more, 3 years. So I thought, why not explore this market first? Because it's the market I'm most familiar with.
Sure.
So then we signed the first customer, the second, the third, and then it became, let's focus on Indonesia.
Sure.
Yeah.
And it's a large market, great opportunities for sure. So you've been living in Indonesia for the last 2 years?
Full time, yeah.
Full time.
Yeah. And in and out for about 5 years.
What do you like the most about this place?
Oh, what do I like the most? I mean, nasi padang is a easy answer. but I think being in the startup space, I really like the energy, the hustle that you feel in Indonesia, especially when you walk through the co-working spaces.
Correct.
Right? That's different from, you get a different feeling versus walking through a co-working space in Singapore.
Sure.
Right? And
what would be a feeling like? Just describe it vaguely. If you're walking through a co-working space in Singapore.
I mean, definitely the co-working spaces are a lot brighter, more spacious. You get a more professional feel.
Yeah.
And also, if you look at the companies in the co-working spaces there, sometimes you would get to see large companies, agencies there. And, also more traditional type of companies.
Yeah, because a lot of people have their regional HQs out there. Just couple of people sitting.
Yes.
And working out over there.
Yeah. Versus when I first walked into Co-Hive in Indonesia, in Co-Hive 101, which I'm not sure if they renamed it. It was all startups, really small offices, where it's maybe a space meant for 2 people, 4 people squeezed in there. Guys really hustling.
The energy is infectious.
Yes, the energy is infectious. Yeah, no nice posters. Everything's makeshift.
Yeah, true,
and a lot of these companies.
Correct.
In that same floor.
Correct. And I mean, I love the fact that people are always smiling. In Jakarta and elsewhere in Indonesia. I mean, it gives you a very positive feeling about the day. And the tasks which you are up to. Okay, interesting. So what's next for Brick in terms of, treasury is one part where you see a lot of traction going on.
Yeah.
What's next?
So it's really doubling down on that being the best treasury tool in the market for businesses, right? And there are so many use cases to build out a business. Like money movement as money movement as a thing. Touches upon almost every aspect of the business, right? Be it payroll, invoice issuance, invoice collections, tax payments, disbursements to your suppliers, withdrawals by your customers. It touches upon almost everything. Right? So what we are doing now is looking for these big use cases that are underserved and helping solve for these use cases, right? At the same time, what we are trying to do is not just do payments and payments alone. Right? We're not trying to rebuild a payments API that many large companies, unicorns in Indonesia already exist and are doing, right? There's no point going head up against them.
Correct.
Right? What we are trying to do is really making payments easier and smarter, and automating all these manual workflows that many Indonesian companies are still putting up with, right? And on top of this, or perhaps supporting this, is also that real-time financial data insights, which we have built since the first days of Brick, right? That financial data platform is now spun off as a sub-brand called Boiva. And that is
Boiva,
Boiva.
Okay.
That's actually supervised by OJK, IKD, and we work really close with OJK as the regulatory cluster leader. In developing regulations for transaction authentication, verifications. So it's still a growing business, not as crazy as it was in 2021.
Correct.
Right, but still a very valuable growing business.
So it's a standalone business now.
We have 2 business units here. So, but it also, every product that we have built in data and verifications is also used in the treasury
part.
The money.
Yeah, there must be that overlaying.
Yeah. So we are our first customer.
Nice. Any plans to expand out of Indonesia?
Yeah. The vision for Brick from day one was always to make financial services more accessible to the 650 plus million people across Southeast Asia.
Okay.
Indonesia was just the first country that we started with, right? So we do have plans to expand to our second and third markets, hopefully in the next 1 to 2 years. Right?
Nice.
But we are being really conservative now, especially in this climate.
True.
Right? So right now it's still full focus on Indonesia, right? Solving for our customers here, making sure that our economics are good before we dip our toes in another market, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the segments which we have on this podcast is an elevator pitch. Okay. So you basically get 1 minute.
Yep.
Okay. And you got to make an elevator pitch, assuming that, let's say, I'm an investor. Okay. I'm an investor, and you're gonna woo me in a minute. You can name your existing customers. You can name what you can design it the way you want to, right? And I try not to be a cocky investor, so I'll be nice. So whenever you're ready.
Okay. Wow. Okay, I'm not prepared for this section. Let me think about it. Right. So, Brick is a money movement tool that moves business owners and finance teams forward with smarter payments, automated workflows, and real-time financial data insights. Right. And we help small businesses and large businesses automate boring, recurring money movement like payroll, invoice management, and disbursements. Right? So eventually we hope to serve the hundreds of millions of SMBs across Southeast Asia. That's the elevator.
Where should I send you the money?
I'll message you.
Message the
I'm a bank
details.
account later.
Perfect. Okay, let's move towards something which is more personal, which also translates to being a co-founder. How do you maintain your sanity with all this chaos, all these pivots, all these suggestions coming from the market, from the investors, the uncertainty within the markets itself? As a founder, how do you maintain your sanity? What is your process like?
I think that this, in fact, I would say is the biggest thing that I have to work on. You have to work on yourself first before you can work on the business, right?
Correct.
And there are a couple of things I do. On top of the list, I would say it's the people around you. And that starts with your co-founder, your investors that you bring on board. You want them to be supportive, not questioning every decision that you do, or being a roadblock or a blocker on moving fast. And then next would be the team members that you surround yourself with.
Sure.
Right. So people is really important. And of course, for me at least, I would never, I cannot imagine myself executing as a solo founder. So knowing that my co-founder has my back, this is it's at its very core, it's something it's a mental safety net that you have, or at least I have.
Sure. So I mean, it's very crucial to have a supportive, strong co-founder.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And also, of course, the rest of the people that you surround yourself with.
Sure.
Right, that's number one. Number two would be knowing what not to work on. Because in any startup, you would have 1,000 fires burning.
Yeah.
Right. It's and everything needs to be worked on.
Yep.
So knowing what not to work on, or knowing, perhaps to put it very bluntly, knowing which fires to let burn temporarily is very important.
Okay.
Right. And a third thing that really helped for me was engaging an executive coach.
Engaging an executive coach.
Yes,
Okay. Expand more on this.
So executive coach, typically in large companies, they would send rising managers to an executive coach to learn skills about how to manage a larger team, especially if the person was coming from an individual contributor type of role.
Okay.
Right. But founders, executives in startups can also get it. right?
Okay.
The important thing is it's really a safe space for you to reflect and
Reflect without being judged.
reflect without being judged. Yeah, a completely safe space, right?
Okay.
So in terms of skills, there are so many investors, angel investors who are founders themselves, more successful founders that I am, that I can tap on and get hard skill advice from them,
Sure.
right? But that's still not a completely safe space because
Correct.
they have a vested interest. You don't 100% know what they're thinking about,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
Although I have to say many of our angel investors are the most supportive people in the world,
Sure. Sure.
right? The executive coach is somebody that you hire, you don't know, that helps you. I really like to call it guided reflection.
Okay.
So we are, as founders, we are often very much in the hustle and bustle of things.
Correct.
And you don't sit down to slow down and think about what you really have to do, which fires you have to let burn temporarily.
Yeah.
So that's something that really helped me in the journey. Yeah.
Sure.
I don't go for it enough. I should go for it more.
Okay. But you found your executive coach.
Yes, yeah. I've gone, frankly, only less than 10 sessions so far. And I haven't gone for the longest time.
Okay.
Yeah, and I should get back on it.
Yeah, maybe this is a reminder.
Yeah.
This podcast a reminder.
Yeah. We do have a lot of European and US investors on our cap table. And when we do go for founder meetups, this is a very common thing that founders in more developed startup markets talk about. Almost, I would say, easily more than half. I would say more than 75% of founders have an executive coach.
Wow.
Very often, the US and European VCs would also pay for the executive coaching or subsidize it for their portfolio company, right? But I noticed that it isn't a thing.
I've never heard of it. But I mean, it sounds. I mean, as you were talking about it, I was thinking on the same lines. And yeah, I mean, it makes a lot of sense. One of the reasons which I can think of is that as a startup founder, there's a lot of bias which gets created in your thoughts. So it becomes more of an echo chamber because you keep thinking about similar processes, similar product, similar problem. After a point, your co-founder is also onboarded on that. Your team says yes. And then it becomes sort of an echo chamber, right? Because, okay, it's all good. It is all good. It is all good until one day it is not good.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And then you're like, okay, what happened?
Yeah.
Yeah, even from that perspective, I feel an executive coach can be a massive help of sorts. But it's a very unbiased opinion, very unvested opinion as well.
Yeah. I would say a good executive coach typically will not give you the answers. They ask a lot of questions to guide you in your thinking. So very, very often we have the answers inside us.
Correct.
We think a lot about a particular problem.
Correct.
Right? But do we let those answers come out in an organized manner? Right?
Yeah. I mean, that's a different podcast altogether.
Yeah.
I mean, the mess which we create in our brain, that needs a different podcast altogether. Okay, so these were the three parts which help you to stay sane throughout.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. If today, in today's understanding today's macroeconomics, and there's a war going on, the recession is looming apparently for certain economies. Having all this in consideration, what do you think about fintech as a market today in Southeast Asia?
Fintech as a industry, as a segment is super challenging right now.
Okay.
Right? And that's also because valuations in fintech got so crazy before in 2021.
Yeah.
And that's why the drop is so sharp as well. But what I truly believe is financial services and fintech is not going anywhere, right? And in fact, it's just only starting in Indonesia and in Southeast Asia. right? It's super nascent. So if we take a long-term view of things, fintech is definitely here to stay, and it would be 10x, 20x, or even more in the next 10 years.
Okay.
Right. So it's really an opportunity that I think more founders should be looking at. Right. It definitely isn't easy because it's a highly regulated market.
True.
Unit economics are super tough in
Correct.
this market.
Correct.
In this segment, yeah. But the opportunity is there, and everybody needs to move money. They need to save more. They need to borrow money. That's not going anywhere. It has existed for thousands of years. It will continue to exist.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely gonna continue. If not fintech, okay, let me rephrase my question. Apart from fintech, where do you see is the next big opportunity in which sector in Southeast Asia? Apart from fintech.
Apart from fintech, yeah. I mean, I would love to say fun tech.
Fun tech.
Fun tech, yeah.
Okay.
Fun tech is it's like gaming, sex tech, yeah, and things like that.
Okay.
But that's the fun side of me. Right? What sometimes fintech is just too regulated. Yeah. But
Just wanna unleash yourself out there.
Yeah, but for the immediate short to medium term, right?
Yeah.
I think there's still huge opportunities in e-commerce.
Okay.
Right. So today we have monsters in the e-commerce space already. Shopee, Tokopedia, Lazada, and then now TikTok is coming with social commerce, live commerce, TikTok Shop.
They're already giving a lot of these e-commerce companies sleepless nights TikToks out there.
Yeah. But still there's so much more opportunities for growth, right? So even TikTok itself is also proving this point because they are coming to the e-commerce space with a different angle,
Correct.
right? Not a marketplace type of platform.
Correct.
So there are always new ways that e-commerce can be brought to more consumers, a bigger audience, right? In fact, today in any country, if you see, e-commerce is still typically single percentage point of GMV.
Correct.
Or commerce as a whole.
Correct. And is not profitable, I believe, in any country.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, except for Shopee.
Except for Shopee. Yeah. Except for Shopee. Except for Shopee now.
Yes.
Yeah. And good beginnings. Yeah. Okay. Interesting. E-commerce, fun tech. Give me one more. Okay. Let me make this more fun. Let's say you are not doing anything now. You're not with Brick, no fintech, nothing. If today you had to start something, what would you start?
Wow, this is a tough question. If I had to start something today and I was say I didn't have any business, right? There is a high chance that it might be a non-venture backed business.
Non-venture backed business.
Yeah, especially in this climate.
Okay.
And I also see a trend of typically tech operators increasingly moving towards non-venture backed businesses.
Expand more on this.
And non-venture backed business would be simply businesses that will not take venture funding. That's number one. But also businesses that do not need a large scale to work. So the typical example would be platforms. You need to get to a very large market share before it works, right? And I think non-venture backed businesses, they have a resurgence right now because for an entrepreneur, it gives you a lot of freedom.
Correct.
Less stress on investors.
So investor money brings in massive liability?
It definitely brings in more responsibilities. I wouldn't say liability.
Okay.
But
responsibility.
Yeah. In fact, perhaps a 100% owned non-venture backed business might have more liability. Because when you take on debt funding,
correct,
you typically have to guarantee it personally.
Yes.
So, but definitely a lot more responsibilities. Typically, venture-backed businesses have a larger team. So that's more jobs and livelihoods that you are impacting.
Correct.
And then you also have a lot of responsibilities to your investors. They want to see a return on their money, etc.
Yeah, I mean, I was talking to a friend the other day as well. Like, I personally feel there has never been a better time to become an entrepreneur. I think this is a period wherein the resilient ones, uh, the really innovative ones, the hardworking ones are gonna survive this one.
Yeah.
There's gonna be there's a lot of cleaning which is gonna happen. A lot of weeding out of companies as well as founders who've been just out there, raised crazy amount of money, but not really solving a problem. That's gonna happen. But I truly believe that great ventures can be created during this period.
Yeah.
Because it requires a resilience.
Yeah.
It requires that thing of keeping your head down and just bloody working.
Yes.
Right? Rather than just shouting about your own startup. Right?
Agree.
And I personally feel, knowing you and Deepak, that you guys are on that path. You guys will, I mean, you're super resilient for sure, both of you, and there's a great problem which you're solving. So I'm pretty sure that beyond this turbulent times, Brick is going to be really, really successful.
Thank you. Thanks, Bipin.
Thank you so much, Gavin. It was good chatting.
Yeah. Really enjoyable chat. Thanks so much, Bipin.
Thank you.